great information. My name is Kevin, and the name of my company is College Planning Service America. I've been doing this for about 16 years. And tonight we're going to talk all about admissions. And you have a freshman, you have a middle schooler, that's fine. It's never too early to begin planning for stuff like this. So as we go along, if you do have questions, let me know. And we can certainly stop and talk about whatever you like to talk about, okay? First thing you should know is that college applications these days are getting a little bit easier to fill out, not harder, which is nice. But there are things called hard and soft factors. And the hard and soft factors essentially are things like your GPA and test scores and class rank. That's the numbers. And most public universities look at that and they say that's kind of what we're most looking at. But then a lot of schools will look at soft factors, which is how interested the student is attending and the essays that they write, their writing style and things like that as well. So that gives a whole context to the application and makes people feel, hey, you know what, they're looking at more of the whole person. So private universities have that holistic approach. Okay, so I've been doing this for about 16, 17 years now, and many students have come and gone and graduated and gone on. But the most important thing that I can give people is knowledge and the ability to understand how this process works. Because again, you mentioned yourself, not familiar with how it works. This might be your first child going through the process. And so there's a lot of little ins and outs that you should know that make it a lot easier for the student to apply and give you the knowledge that you need to get as much satisfaction out of the application process, the best results, and then hopefully financially that'll match it, okay? Now the newest factor is called informed interest. Informed interest is essentially where schools are now tailoring their essays and other information specifically to their university. In the old days, you could write an essay, change the name of the school, and hand it out to 20 different schools. They didn't care. But now what they're doing is they're saying, you know what, if you're interested in attending our school, then the most important thing you can do is research us, and when the student writes an essay, answer the question as if you were going to be attending our university, okay? So there are a lot more quirky essays. Why do you want to go to my university? The motto, what's our tradition? Things like that. Now, here are some interesting essay topics that schools will do. Notice Carnegie Mellon, one page, single spaced, and they want to know what your particular major or department is that you're doing. Hi, how you doing? Grab one of those right there. And so the essay should include why you're going to be going to that university, why you'd like to apply, things of that nature. Duke University, they go even further. And notice that these essays that they want for each of these schools isn't long. In other words, it's very short. They want 250 words. They want to say, tell us what it's all about and don't fluff it up, okay? So Duke asked for things that years ago nobody asked about. In other words, the community you belong to, sexual orientation, gender identity, family or cultural information. All these things now come into play. And that makes it very, very interesting for the admissions committees to read, and more importantly, it's more interesting for the student who cannot just write a cookie-cutter essay and submit it. They even got into the 21st century. They essentially, University of Southern California, write a 140-character tweet to describe you. That's their essay. So instead of 150 or 500 words, it's 140 characters, just in keeping with what people are used to doing today. University of Chicago takes the cake every year. They have contests among their alumni and who can come up with the quirkiest, strangest essay. So here's this essay from, I think, this past year. If there's a limited amount of matter in the universe, how can Olive Garden and their food infinity offer truly unlimited soup, salad, and breadsticks? Explain this using any methodology you wish, physics, biology, economics, history. So they're going to have fun with this. And if you don't like that one, they've had so many quirky ones over the years that what they do is they say, go back in our archives, find one that you do like, and then write about that. So this was done by this young lady, class of 2023, so she's still in school, obviously, okay? Early admissions, early decision, don't know if you know what those are about. Regular applications have dates that are almost rolling all the time. But if you're interested in school, really interested, then you can apply early action, early decision. Here's the difference. Early decision, which I'll get to in a minute, is binding, meaning you can only apply to one school like that, and if they accept you, that's where you're going. So you have to be very careful about if you can afford it, and also if you think there's a good chance of you getting in. Early action is non-binding. You can apply to as many schools as you want, excuse me, and make sure that you have a better chance of getting in. So the best advice I can give you is apply to more than one school early, okay? And at least one school. And then this way, if the student says, you know what, I visited X university and I really love it, it's really where I want to go. By applying one of these ways, it shows the university that you're extremely interested and you're a top candidate, okay? Here's early decision. Go ahead.
So you said early, I saw that early admission was November sometime, right? Early, yeah. Applying for the early admissions, right?
Yes.
So, but how is it otherwise? What is the period that you have to apply and what grade is the kid?
Every school is different,
Okay.
okay? Every school is different. So when you're applying to schools, if you go to their website, and most schools take the Common App, which I'll get into in a little while, most schools will tell you, here's our deadlines. If you're applying early, it's by this date. If you're applying early decision, early action, or regular. A lot of public universities are what are called rolling admissions, meaning they don't have an exact date. But the sooner you get it in, the more they like it, because then they know that they have a whole bunch of people that they can go through and accept. If you wait until the very last minute for deadlines, sometimes you're out in the cold because all the slots have been filled. So you have to be very careful about that. Early decision, as I mentioned, one school and one school only, and only, there are several hundred that accept early decision. Does it help you get in? Yes. But here's the other side of the coin, is that again, if you are accepted, then you have to withdraw, the student withdraws all their other applications. And they are going to attend that school. And the only way you can get out of that binding contract is if you can't afford it. And what they'll do is before you even apply, they're gonna say, we can give you a pre-read. You let us know a little bit of information about your finances, and we'll let you know what we think your financial aid is going to be, okay? And that's important because, listen, you can go to Drexel University that has early decision, there's $72,000 a year, that's a sticker price. But even if they give you a maximum award, you may be on the hook for $40,000 or $45,000 a year, every year, for 4 years. So you have to be very careful about using that ED slot. However, many universities take a lot of their applicants early. So American University, 85% of their admissions are early decision. Only 23% get admitted if they wait until regular. So these are numbers that you should be very aware of. Here's the rolling admissions, meaning that as you get those applications in, if they have everything they need to take a look at, which includes the application, letters of recommendation, the transcript, things like that, they'll let the student know pretty much immediately. Penn State, for example, opens their applications, as do most schools, in August. But they begin letting their students know of admissions as early as September 1st. So that's amazing. Odds against acceptance are increasing. So again, what you want to do is apply to more schools. This year and every year is different. I can't tell you, for example, what Penn State's SAT sort of guidelines are going to be next year. I know what they were this year. So it depends on the quality of applicants, the number of applicants that they get in. So all these things are going to be weighing heavily on those admissions. But what I would do is, instead of applying to 5 or 6 schools, I would apply to 8 or 10. And then what that does is give you a bigger pool to choose from, and it gives the student a probably better chance of getting more acceptances, which is good because when it comes to financial aid, you'll want to be able to kind of play one school off against the other. many people ask me, they say, well, acceptance rates, you know, they say we accept 60%, we accept 70%, we accept 40%, and, you know, University of Pennsylvania is 9%. I mean, you know, really unbelievably tough to get in. But you know what it is? It's not what the university acceptance rate is, it's really, you look at the student, and you look at the pool of students and the pool of applicants every single year. And what happens with that is then they can kind of take a look and say, well, here's our group of students, here's the medium SAT or ACT scores, here's our medium GPA. So all that stuff comes into consideration, and then they can take a look. But again, it's the individual student and their interest in the school that determines if they're going to get in more than what that university acceptance rate is. Now, is University of Pennsylvania all of a sudden going to accept 50% of the students that apply? No, that's never going to happen. But Ivy League schools are like that. But if you look at a lot of the public universities, you can kind of get a fair idea from year to year within a certain range what the SAT and GPAs have been looking for. Now, you haven't yet begun receiving anything in terms of universities that you've never heard of sending you stuff in the mail. As soon as your student gets onto the College Board website, and what grade?
He's going to be going to 9th grade.
Good, okay. So we have, what, 7th, 8th, 9th, I mean, you know, this is a young audience, which is fine. But here's the deal. As soon as they register at College Board for the PSAT, is when you're going to begin getting stuff in the mail, and you can say, how do they know that my kid is like getting into high school or going to be? College Board sells your information, and they just give it and they say, you know, here you go. So all these universities that you've never heard of before will be sending you view books, and here, please apply, and we'll waive the application fee, and you know, we hope you like what you see, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So just don't be surprised that if that happens. But if you take a look, it's called recruit to deny. In other words, some schools that you have heard of, like a Drexel, for example, or Villanova, or schools like that, will say, hey, you know what, why don't you apply? And they'll say this is to apply, you know, we'll waive the application fee, maybe not even look at the essay. We just want to get, you know, those numbers, your SAT scores and so forth. And then a couple of weeks later, after the student has applied, you get the letter in the mail, sorry. And why they do this is because it boosts their selectivity ratio. And so all of a sudden these schools look a lot harder to get into than they really are. And it's very simple math, okay? If you have 4,000 slots and 8,000 apply, all right? So 50% get in. Now, if I, as an admissions director, say, well, you know what? Let me recruit more and get 12,000 to apply for the same 4,000 slots. Well, now I look much harder to get into. But those 4,000 that I kind of self-recruited or invited, I know they're not going to be getting in. But what that does is it boosts everything else. And it makes my school look like, wow, you know, they're really tough to get into. So you take a look at some of these numbers. Bucknell, 11,000 applied, 2,700 accepted. Villanova, 22,000, 23,000 applied, 6,000 got in. Penn State, 67,000 applied, 15,000 got in. And Yale, any Ivy League school, 30,000 applicants, only less than 2,000 accepted. So if you do the math, you can see that's 5–6%. Okay. When a student is beginning to apply and wants to create a list of what they were looking for in a university, it's a very important thing because there's a whole list. These are all the factors that can go into making a list. So if you take a look, it could be location, far away, nearby. Is it going to be in suburbs, urban, out in the boondocks? We don't know. When we look at sizes of schools, I think small is usually less than 5,000 students. Medium, 5 to 15, and large is 15,000 or more. So Penn State is large, humongous almost. But they're not the largest in the country. University of Central Florida has 60,000 students, as an example. It's pretty big, okay? And there are other schools just as large. You'll want to take a look at what their average SAT and ACT scores from year to year, just to see what they are. How selective are they? Very selective, not so selective. Are they diverse? Are you looking for a public school, which is usually larger? Private schools usually look small. Are you looking for a particular major. Well, you want to make sure the school has that major as one of its top 2 or 3, because that's where the money is. That's where they're going to put money into those programs. Co-ops and internships. Drexel's very famous for dropping out co-ops, and everybody has them. They do it a little bit differently, and that's what they hang their hat on. Hopefully they get a lot of applicants coming in for that. And how much is their scholarships? You know, how much are they giving away in terms of money? And what are the scores or things that you need to get those scholarships? Less often, people look at on-campus or off-campus housing, the activities and clubs, which for certain students are very important. If they want to play in sports, the athletic programs, they want to pledge a fraternity or sorority. What kind of support services? If a student's not doing well in school, are they going to care enough to make sure that this student gets a tutor or a mentor to get them through whatever tough class they're going through? And more importantly, is you should visit the placement office and find out, hey, you know what? Within 6 months of graduation, if my student is going to be graduating with a degree in psychology, are they going to have a job in psychology? You know, these families, what they do is they ask, well, within 6 months of graduation, is my student going to have a job? Well, of course they will. Could be here at the library, it could be Lowe's, it could be McDonald's, but they would have a job, okay? But you're looking for a job because they majored in a particular major, if that's what you're looking for. Now, sometimes a student will come to you and say, you know what, I found this major, and it's sort of off the beaten track. It's not exactly business, it's not exactly psychology, it's not exactly, but they say, you know what, I have a real interest in it, okay? So, sometimes those big name colleges don't have the best programs. Sometimes it's smaller schools that have that particular program and they do it really, really well. So all of these things here could be things that a student is interested in. And again, some of the top schools may not have that particular major. For example, video game design. Now, believe it or not, you know, when your student is playing video games and stuff like that, you think it's a waste of time, but maybe they're studying for their major. And what'll happen is, you can get a job in the video game industry designing through computers and things like that, and salaries are $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year or more to begin with. So they have to be pretty brilliant, but there you are. Schools like Southern Cal, Carnegie Mellon, Rochester Institute of Technology, that's Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, Savannah College of Art and Design. They're the ones that have these cutting edge programs, you know, that they're getting programmers in, and they're having a fantastic time developing video games. Some students want to be an engineer. Everybody, you know, says engineering is a great career, and it is, but there's so many different engineering platforms. However, guess what? Here's one that you may not have heard of. Packaging engineering. Who ever heard of that? Well, you would hope that the package that you receive from Amazon or wherever, when you open it up, everything is there in one piece. Well, they have to design that to make sure it gets to you in one piece. And here are schools like Clemson, Michigan State, Rutgers. They have set up literal factories with the actual equipment, and they have their students right on there developing and changing and making sure everything is really fantastic. And graduates with this degree, multiple high-paying job options and huge signing bonuses, because nobody ever heard of packaging engineering. We've all heard of mechanical and electrical and aerospace and things like that. But again, there are so many different things out there. Don't limit yourself. These jobs right now, these majors are the ones that will lead you to employment. Anything from biomedical engineering, biometrics, medical tech, there's web design, computer games, cybersecurity, construction management, robotics, sustainability. See, these are things that maybe 15 or 20 years ago, we as parents, that didn't exist. And what will happen now in your lifetime, probably in another 10 or 15 years, there's going to be stuff that is going to be totally different. That isn't even up there yet because we haven't developed it yet. And yet they will be there. So again, when a student says, I want to be in business, that's cool. Business is fine. But you better know what cutting edge business degree programs there are out there so that you're not antiquated as soon as you graduate. I talk all over the place. And in Michigan, I found Northern Michigan University, who has a brand new career opportunity, Bachelor of Science in Medicinal Plant Chemistry. Now, if you don't recognize the plant at the bottom left, from my generation, that was very, very prevalent. And, but they have developed where the cannabis industry, marijuana, medicinal marijuana, is a billion dollar industry. And they're now opening stores and everything else like that. And if you study this, it's a great career because it's something that people need. All right, and it's no joke. In other words, they're not just sitting around, smoking a joint and saying, "Well, this is pretty good." They're taking gas and liquid chromatography and atomic spectrometry, chemistry 420. These are the ones that these are tough courses. And they're the ones that they're developing. So again, this is something that 10 years ago never existed. Some students and parents always ask AP classes, so how many should I take? Well, it depends on your school. Now, I imagine most of you are in the Phoenixville School District. Now, I don't know how many AP classes they have at the high school, but let's say they have 30. Okay, that's a pretty good number. But if you go to a smaller high school, maybe they only have 15. So it's a matter of the number of AP classes eligible and available, and the number of AP classes taken by the classmates, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So all I can tell you is this. In choosing your courses, you should challenge yourself. In other words, I'm not telling you to take 5 AP classes, 6 AP classes. There are students who do, don't get me wrong. And sleep is so overrated, I guess they just don't. Okay, but if a student takes 1 or 2 or 3, and they can, survive that kind of intense competitiveness, fine. It all depends on what students are going to be doing. So, for example, you can't take 5 AP classes and think that, the student's great in math and science, not so great in English. Well, they're not all getting 95s. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that the student takes classes that are challenging, but that they can survive it and do well and survive and thrive. So when you're making up those courses, as you progress through high school, you're going to want to make sure that each year they're taking enough classes that make it look like a challenge, but not overpoweringly challenged. I mean, to me, as I say, if you can handle it, wonderful. If you can't, that's not the end of the world either. It all depends on the major that the student is looking at anyway. Here's the groups that are being heavily recruited, and they range anything from transfer students, minorities, first-generation college students, out-of-state, merit scholarship students, full students who, family can afford the full price of school. All of that factors into admissions, okay? When you take tours and the students take you around, you look at all the infrastructure, so to speak, the dining room and the classrooms and the dormitories and things like that. That's one thing, okay? But more importantly, you want to find out who they're looking for. And every year it may change, okay? So just because I'm saying this is what it is now, 5 years from now, 4 years from now, could change. Maybe some are still there and some aren't. So it all depends on each year. But as a parent, these are the things that you want to kind of take a look at. Hey, are they looking for my student, and does my student fit into some of these categories? That may make him or her a better catch. Standardized test scores, all right, you've heard of super scoring, okay? What super scoring is you can take more than one, let's say SAT, and let's say that on the first one, the student does better on the reading, and on the second one, does better on the math. Well, a lot of schools will super score, saying whatever your highest scores were in each of those sections, combine them, that's what we'll look at. Some schools like Penn State say whatever you do on the best day you took that test, that's the one we're looking at. So they don't super score. ACT, which is a different exam, they can super score also, okay? So it's always good to take at least one of each, one SAT and one ACT. And then let the student decide which one did I like better in terms of the format, which one did I do better on, then that's the one they can now study a lot more and pursue and take again. I don't make it an industry. I have some families that say, oh, my kid took it 5 times. It's way too many, all right? I would say no more than 2 to 3 tops. I find that the biggest jump is between the first time and the second time. The second time to the third time, it's either a plateau or sometimes they even go down. So the more you take it doesn't mean the better you're going to do, okay? But again, it's just with everything that a student is doing in terms of classwork and homework, extracurricular activities and all that other good stuff, You don't need to make this into a cottage industry, that you're doing this all the time. And by the way, let's say that your student is not a great test taker. Fairtest.org lists a number of schools, and a number of them are very well known, that are now test optional, meaning that they don't consider them as highly as other schools. So some students just can't do well on these tests. They freeze up because of time factor, maybe they didn't take some of the math or some of the reading. Nobody teaches grammar in school anymore, and that's part of each of those tests. So the thing is, if they're not great test takers, it's okay. We'll find a school that's test optional. They can go on their GPA, their essay, extracurricular activities. But too often I get parents who get crazy. Oh, can only get 1150. She's never going to get into school. Yes, she will. All right, but that may be a strength. It may not be a strength. If they study, and you can spend thousands of dollars on tutors and things like that. I'm not, belittling that. I'm saying if you wanted to do that, these tests are built, unfortunately, not to figure out if the student's going to do well in college. They don't measure that. It's how well can you beat the test. So the more you know, the more the student kind of studies, the better it is. But don't take it more than 2 or 3 times. Extracurricular activity is really, really important now. In the old days, you needed so many. The resume was pages and pages. Not anymore, okay? Limit it to 8 to 10 really good ones. And I'm happy that you're all here because you should start these extracurricular activities freshman year. Now, I'm not saying that a student tries one and says, I hate it, and you keep saying, no, keep going, you gotta have 4 years. No. They can try 1 or 2, but the ones that they find that they really love, Future Business Leaders of America, Robotics Club, Key Club, Student Ambassador, there's so many different ones, okay? If they have 8 to 10 of those and they've done them for 2, 3, 4 years, that's great. And that doesn't include anything outside of school. Maybe they go to a religious school, or maybe they do volunteering and community service outside of school. All of that counts. Maybe they babysit. Maybe they fix bicycles. Maybe they fix computers. Whatever it is, okay? Any of the part-time jobs, landscaping, they mow lawns. All that counts, okay? So it's not just what they do in school, it's everything else as well. Different levels of participation. Level 1, we'll start with level 4 rather. Just, hey, they joined a club. All right, they're enjoying it. They're not a president or a vice president or anything, but they're there, they're a member. Okay, cool. Level 3, maybe they're the secretary or treasurer of the club. Okay. Level 2, president, state level competition. Some awards were given. And level 1, state and national. They went to the national championships, or they did things on a national level, or they raised thousands of dollars nationally. I don't know if Phoenixville has a mini-thon, but mini-thons are phenomenal. And that's based on the Penn State Thon, which was just this past weekend. It's a 46-hour dance-a-thon and raises millions of dollars for childhood cancer. So if your school doesn't have something like that, that's something that students can get involved in, start their own chapter, and do it on a yearly basis. Some people say, I want my student to be well-rounded. Well, for the most part, that does work in certain circumstances. But if they're going to be a math or a science major, go for engineering or math or science or something like that, they don't want well-rounded. They want edges. They want the student did all of these different things in math and science to show us that if they're going to be in our engineering program, they have a huge background of engineering, of math, of science, so that we know that they're going to do well. And you should be careful about the classes that you choose, because if they're going to be an engineer, for example, or math and science, if they don't take certain classes in high school, they won't be considered in college because they'll be found to be wanting in terms of those activities or those classes. And if they don't have the prerequisites, they're not going to be considered. So that's why every year when students choose their classes, you be involved to make sure that they're on the right track. Okay? Part-time jobs, delivering pieces, going to, bussing tables, playing a sport, all that is working on student newspaper, all that stuff counts. Now, A lot of schools are looking for new leadership, okay? Unfortunately, if you take a look at what happened, Columbine High School was in 1990, 91, somewhere there. That was the first real high school, unfortunately, a massacre. Everybody was outraged. What happened? Nothing. In other words, everybody was outraged for a few weeks and then it died down. Same thing happened at Stoneman Douglas in Florida. March for Our Lives, all over the country. Okay? Students left class and protested. And there were literally millions of students who were marching in protest. That's the difference. So if a student's going to get involved, make sure you get involved. That's going to be more than just, you know, a few kids having fun. Not everybody's going to be able to do that, but consider the option. Consider the opportunity that there could be, okay? So that's how colleges are now looking at extracurricular activities. Now, what if your student is not a front of the room speaker, okay? And they're hesitant to get up in front and speak and be a leader that way. It's not a problem. We need teams. We need players. We need members of teams that are going to be part of that, okay? So if you're passionate and you show that you can be a team player, you're collaborative, you are, you know, make that team successful because of what you bring to the table. That's important, very important, as important as being a leader. So just because a student can't stand up in front, maybe they do innovative things in the lab, or they write an important paper, or things like that. That makes sense, right? 3 ways to show that you really want to go to a university: visit the campus. Now, there's an asterisk there. The very, very elite schools know that they're getting the very, very elite students who are applying. That's not going to be a make or break effort. You know, in other words, if your student visits or doesn't visit, that doesn't eliminate them or make them more of a candidate. But schools like Penn State or James Madison or Widener or Gwynedd Mercy, they like to have students visit. That is a factor that they will consider. Hey, the student took time to visit. The family did a tour. Okay, that's important to them. So, second thing, less and less schools are not doing interviews. But if your student is a pretty good interviewer in terms of being able to talk and, you know, express himself or herself, cool, no problem. So what you do is they can request an interview, and maybe that's an alumni will visit with them at a Starbucks or a Panera Bread or something like that, or maybe on campus. It only helps. The only way that an interview kills a candidate is if they show up late, they're monosyllabic, you know, yes or no answers, they look like they're bored, they're checking their watch, they look like they don't want to be there. They wear a Temple sweatshirt to a Penn State interview, things like that. And then the writing is now so important. Writing a really good essay, writing a really good personal statement. These things are extremely, extremely important. That's the, except for grades, probably the most important piece of real estate. Now, if your student is not a great writer, you don't go buy an essay, all right? There are websites you can do that. Worst thing in the world. A student can find what they're passionate about and write about it. And I read probably 1,000 essays a year for my clients, and they're all great because it's from the heart. But the student sometimes needs to kind of figure out what they want to write about, what's important, what would make a good story. And that's what it is. It's your story. It's your background. And if you do it the right way, that separates everybody and makes it easier for the admissions committee to say, oh, okay, I know exactly what this student is all about, and we want them at our school. On some of these applications, they're going to have these optional essays. Optional will always mean mandatory. You do everything that they ask you, whether it's optional or not. And the reason why is because, having been on an admissions committee, if I get an application and a student's trying to impress me and they don't answer optional questions, hey, you're trying to get into my university. If you don't take the time, if you don't think this is important enough, then why should I waste my time reading your essays and everything else? Give me everything you got. Then I know you're really interested. Okay, that's number one. Be authentic. Just because a friend of your sons or daughters has a certain story doesn't mean that's the right way to go. Your child has a story. Your child has a narrative. So that's what you should do, is focus on that. And then take the lead, all right? Parents can be administrative in terms of you want to help gather some information, that's fine. But you're not writing the essay, okay? And you're not pushing the student to get stuff done. The student doesn't want to, go through the process. The student says, yeah, I'll get around to it. Then, okay, you know what? When they fall on their faces, it's lesson learned. And there's always community college, which is always a very good option. Or they may not get into the school of their dreams. But that's because if they don't put in the effort, you as a parent can't push them. You're not going to be there. You're not going to be next to them in class. You're not going to be there in their dorm room. All right? I mean, in the old days, they were called helicopter parents, right? Okay? 21st century, you're now drone parents. All right? Drone parents. And now there's a new one, bulldozer parents. They push everything out of the way to make it easier for the kid. Now, you know what? Adversity is good for a student. All right? Not everybody's going to get 100. Not everybody's going to get A's all the time. Not everybody's going to succeed. You're not going to get into every school that you apply to. Just, that's what it is. But if you know what you're doing, then you can guide, not push. You can't say, hey, do you get this done? Do you do this done? Some parents will do that on a daily basis. You know, did you get your homework done? You study for that test? Don't forget this. When it comes to high school, maybe freshman year, that transition, maybe they still need that a little bit. By the time they're sophomores, juniors, seniors, they better have figured it out. That's all I have to say. Again, some of these colleges don't. They could care less if you visit. But the less elite schools, shall I say, which are still very, very good schools, they do care. Okay? There's a common application. This makes it a lot easier. In the old days, every school had their own application. You had to fill it out again and again and again. Now, Common App, with a list of schools, all the information is basic, it's in there. Some schools have little addendums, little extra questions and things, but makes it easy. And you can begin looking at it now, just to see what it's all about. Now, can't guarantee the essays aren't going to change, they probably will. But at least you can get an idea of what it looks like and what they're asking for. There's information that the parents need to fill out, information the student needs to fill out, test scores, the classes that they're taking, the essay, extracurricular activities, but it's all pretty streamlined. Okay? Coalition app, sort of new, similar concept. Few schools use it, but some schools you've heard of, like Clemson, Florida, University of Maryland, Virginia, Elon, they use the Coalition app. Why they don't use the Common App, I have no idea. Maybe they like this one better. But it's the same thing. List the schools, fill it out, and now the student doesn't have to keep putting the same information in time after time after time. Pretty much one and done. I love for students when they use technology. ZME is used to upload videos and things onto that Coalition app, and sometimes schools ask for a video instead of an essay. Khan Academy, free online SAT and ACT prep, so they can begin for free getting all that information. And then here's an app called Scollay. It's a smartphone app. I don't know if you know the background, but a young man named Christopher Gray wanted to go to Drexel, could not afford it. Mom said, go out and find scholarships. He went and found $1.3 million worth of scholarships. Think about that. Then he went on Shark Tank and sold his idea for an app to help other students like him to the 5 sharks. So he's obviously retired his student debt and is making a lot of money. It's, I think, $45 a year or $4.99 a month, something like that. It has over 12,000 scholarships and other information that's useful. So it's, again, smart app, pretty easy to do. As parents, here are some concerns that you'll always have. The admissions process is always changing. I'm not sure what's going on. What are the latest trends? Well, I just gave you some, okay? My child is smart, but will he or she stand out with those extracurricular activities? Well, that's why they begin to do things now. So they could begin trying out and finding things that they like and stick with it throughout their high school career. My child puts things off to the last minute. I've got plenty of time. All right? Will the applications get done on time? It's up to the student. Up to the student. And hopefully you have a guidance counselor who cares. Some do, some don't. I'll be honest with you. But that's up to the student. Okay? Essays are getting tougher. And again, one of the things that I do, in addition to helping, being a professional and guiding you through this process, is I take it every step of the way. I do review their essays. We work together. I do help them with their classes. I do help them with, making sure if they're taking the right SAT or ACT, things of that nature. I don't do SAT and ACT prep. I used to. Other people can do it better. Okay, so I'd rather have you get a professional who knows what they're doing rather than me that can give you some ideas, but not nearly what some students need. Many students, especially the younger ones, part of the herd mentality. What do I mean by that? We all dress the same, listen to the same music, like the same things, eat at the same cafeteria table every day. Everything is the same. And it's, very safe, very comfortable. I don't want to stand out. I'm part of that pack. In a classroom, they don't raise their hands. Sit in the back. Okay, that's all right. But all I'm saying is this. In the application process, that's not going to work. Because don't forget, whoever your best friend is, okay, they're competing. And maybe they're competing for the same schools you are. Many times when Penn State or Temple or University of Pittsburgh announce their selections, you always have students who say, wait a second, my SATs were better, grades were better, he got in, I didn't. How'd that work? Can't tell you. Behind closed doors, I have no idea. But that could happen. So all I can tell students is, you do the best you can. But remember that your best friends are the ones who are also competing for the same seats you are at the same universities. So you can be friendly and best of friends, but just understand it's a competition like anything else. Okay? What I tell students is be inspired, be inspiring, stand out, do the maximum, not the minimum. Okay? Make a difference. That's what's going to make students get into the universities that they want to. And they have to have the ability to withstand this application process. I'll give you a perfect idea. I had a student, New Jersey, who Rutgers was her #1 choice. Should have gotten in without any hesitation at all, but for some reason was deferred or rejected, I forget, was deferred. She was so upset. One of the top students in her class, in-state university. What happened? So I said, well, there's 2 directions you can go in. #1 is you can just say, I'm ticked off and that's all there is to it. Or why don't you write an email and say, I'm disappointed. What were you looking for? What could I have done better? I said, write it from your heart and send it to me and I'll let you know what I think. So she wrote an email and sent it to me. And the tenor of it was, you made a real mistake. How dare you? I'm an in-state, there's no way I shouldn't have gotten, she was like, I was from the heart, but boy, oh boy, if they were in the room, it would have been Machine Gun Kelly. So I helped her edit it, and I said, I know how upset you are, but I said, this is not the way. All right, you have to kind of restate your case and make the point that, would you take a look again just to be sure? And she submitted her email. 2 days ago, they accepted her, okay? But that doesn't happen all the time. But you know what? Sometimes admissions committees say, I'd rather have somebody who's fighting for that slot. Then somebody says, oh, well, you know, next. And as I said, won't happen always, but it doesn't hurt to at least try if that's your number one choice school. So, no word to the wise. That's my daughter. She's 28 now. All right, this was taken way back when. But here's the benediction that I give to everybody who comes to a seminar. And I'll tell you what she did. She graduated in 4 years, and that's a major, okay? You want a student to graduate in 4 years, you don't want to pay for an extra year of school. So graduated in 4 years, got a job in her industry, in her major. So now she's living on her own, she pays her own rent, she leases a car and pays her car payment and insurance, she has her own phone, obviously. She has a 401k. She just got into management, but I buried the lead. She's happy, and within a couple of years, she'll be done with her student loans. And that's another seminar for another day about financial aid. I used to present over at the high school, and some of these guidance departments think they could do it better. No, they can't. I just know a lot, and I'd rather be a resource, but some of these people look at me and say, oh, you know what, he knows so much, he'll make me look bad. Look, the bottom line is, do you want your kid to go to a school that's really going to be good? You know, do you want your student to be able to have a choice of good universities? I'm not saying I'm not the leading expert in the country, but, you know, I've been doing it for 16 years, not because of her, but because it's just an interesting way to earn a living. And I love working with families. So it's a passion of mine. So when you're passionate and you don't have to pick and choose among 400 or 500 students, figure out who's doing what, makes it a little bit easier. So when I present these things in either an auditorium or in front of a small group like this, it's fine. You take away good information, and now you kind of know what you have to look forward to. And that's the most important thing. I mean, you mentioned it as soon as you came in, is I had no idea, right? And her students only in 7th grade now. So we have 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, you know, or 9th grade now?
Yes.
And going to be in 9th, so 7, 8, 9. There's no time like being prepared and making sure that you're doing the right thing, okay? You're still a couple of years away from when you need me. Not that I would love to have you sign up tonight, but get the information and begin thinking about things. And keep my information. When the time is right, you'll come in for a consultation. And if I can be of service, I'm very reasonable. So that's the most important thing I can tell you. I'm located in Fort Washington, and I travel all over the place. And I do a lot of good things for a lot of, you know, really great people. But the information that you get tonight, at least it's a jumping off point. It gives you direction. And that's the most important thing. If you know, now I kind of have an idea of what I'm supposed to be doing or looking at. Now when you sit down with a guidance counselor, you're a little bit more informed, and you can have a good discussion with this, you know, rather than just telling you, here's how it is. You know what? Don't accept that. You know, there are a few things about my student that I think would guide us in a different direction, or at least something else to consider. That's the most important thing. Okay? So thanks for your time, I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, now's the time. If later, call me. If you want to come in just for a consultation, it's free. I don't care how old the student is. If you just want students to hear, and I'm glad they came tonight because it's important for them to know. So you have a lot of good stuff to look forward to. Okay? So thanks a lot.